If you want to make $1,000 in digital sales by the end of this year, follow all the tips in this video. I guarantee you'll make it. And if you don't make it, you're doing something wrong in your store that's costing you sales. Let's get into this. Every tip is gold. Let's go. Tip number one. You know, on my channel, I've been telling you all the time to get 100 listings in your store. Well, for digital, you're going to go to 365 listings. That's over 3 times the amount, but you're going to do it slowly. And there's a reason for this. The market is so competitive with digital on Etsy. The barrier to entry is so low. Anyone can set up a digital store with a Canva account and an Etsy store. It's so easy. So you've got to move your store up and away from a lot of the competition. And one of the major failing points for so many digital stores is the fact that they're too small. So people come to me all the time, week in, week out. Nick, I'm not making any sales in my digital store. I go and look at the store and the first thing I see is 30 items, 50 items. It's just not going to cut it. It's a numbers game. It's never more a numbers game than when it comes to digital. So you want to try and head to 365 items in your store. You don't have to do this quickly. You've just got to make the commitment to get there. So if you say, yes, I'm going to go for it, you can list an item a day. If you like, that's going to take you a year to get there. But the good news is by the time you get towards Christmas, you're going to be way above and beyond 100 items. And as I say, so many Etsy stores, they never even get to 100 items with digital. They sit with 30 or 40 items. So tip one, 365 items, do it slowly, and this will set the foundation for the other tips I'm about to give you. Let's get into number two. So this tip number two, whoever hears this is literally sales in your hands if you implement it. Listen carefully. When you're in digital selling on Etsy, don't sell finished products. Sell supplies for other people to make finished products. It's so much easier to sell digital when you're selling supplies. So think of graphics and logos and templates. So you're providing the source for someone else to finish their product with. You're not providing something finished like a journal or a resume template. You want to supply things that other people then make something with. It's as with supplies in physical products in Etsy. If you have a physical store selling supplies, it's so much easier to get started, get those sales under your belt and start the ball rolling because there's so many people out there looking for supplies to then make other products with. Just think of all the people doing print on demand. Think how many people are doing print on demand. Think how many people need designs and logos and words and, you know, whatever it is that they want to make their designs with. So this is probably the one of two of the biggest tips in this video today. Make supplies for other people to make something with. Let's get on to number three. Tip number three, this is something you don't hear anybody talking on YouTube about, and that is the reality of failure rates for digital products in your store. You have to plan for a 30 to 50% failure rate overall. So everything you create digital in your store now and in the future, 30 to 50%, it's never going to sell a thing. And all those items in your store that don't sell have to come out of your store. You can't just leave these items in your store as you build and grow. You've got to manage your store. It's just like a real life department store. Imagine what a famous department store would do with its stock in winter. It would have winter stock, but then when we get into spring, it all changes. They can't leave the winter stuff in stock because it's just not going to sell. It's the same concept in our Etsy stores. We have to constantly merchandise and build and grow and manage the stock in our store. So it's absolutely critical that when you're building and growing to 365 items, you have to recognize once you get to these numbers, 30 to 50% of all that stuff you've made is going to then need to come out of your store and be replaced with new items. So this is critical because a lot of people that I speak to in my consultancy when I'm building digital stores, they think it's okay to cut corners. You know, they'll say, oh, well, this design didn't work and it had a sun on it. But if I change the sun for a moon, then it's a different product. Well, technically it's a different product, but it would be much better if you came up with a completely new product. Remember, the barriers to entry are so low for digital. It's as low as it can get. A computer, an internet connection, and Canva, and you can create designs that you can sell. So you've got to bear in mind that a lot of the stuff you're going to make is going to fail, and you need to come up with more unique products in your niche and sub-niche set for customers to buy, to keep it interesting, to keep it relevant. The customers want to see new things in your store, not just twists on products. Really important. 30 to 50% will fail. You need to build that in to your growth and management of your listings in your Etsy store. Let's get on to number 4. So tip number 4 is to help you with tip number 1. So tip number 1, as you remember, is to get to 365 items in your store. Well, this tip will help you get there. And I see so many digital sellers not doing this, and it boggles my mind because it makes it so much easier. You need to bundle and set your items. So if you're selling, let's just say you're selling fruit downloads, so people can download fruits to put on t-shirts and whatever. You don't just want to sell single fruits. You want to do sets of 4, sets of 6, sets of 8, sets of 10. Increase your AOV, your average order value, get more sales coming into your store, and give customers more variety and more choice in your store. Because when you've got 100, let's say you get to your first 100 items, you're just under a third of the way on your journey to 365. Well, if you start setting and bundling up those items, that'll give you another 10, 15 items to add to your store with no additional design needed. It's just the actual time it takes you to redo the images for your product slots to get these bundles and sets in. So this is something you need to do from the outset. As you're building and growing your store, immediately start bundling and setting. And of course, you make more money on sets of 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. Really important. Bundles and sets. Let's get on to number 5, which is the most important one, the most important tip of all. Tip number 5 is the most important of all, and you have to solve this right now at the beginning of your journey building and growing your Etsy digital store. And that is, your number 1 problem is going to be design. Whether you believe it or know it or not, your number 1 problem is design. How do you crank out day after day, week after week, month after month, one fresh new design per day? Because on the one side, I'm not asking a lot. I'm saying to you, all you got to do is list 1 item per day and do it for 365 days. But the further you go, the more difficult it gets, because every single day you've got to crank out that design. You've got to get the design done. You've got to get all the file types done, whatever it may be, get it into your store and do that day after day. And the more you can stick to the process and plan of listing, the more efficient you will get at all aspects of your digital download business. And the number 1 problem you'll face is design. So if you can do the design, if you've got time each day, it doesn't sound a lot, does it? 1 design. I mean, people might say, well, I can do that in 30 minutes. Okay, some people can, but other designs might take 2 or 3 hours. Remember, you're designing once to sell possibly thousands of times. Design once, sell many. So this is the relationship that you have with time and sales. So yeah, you might need to take 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours to do a design. Well, then that gets difficult. And generally speaking, this is something that I've noticed selling digital downloads myself and advising people for years, is the more time you put into your digital products, generally speaking, the more sales you'll make, because you're moving yourself up and away from easy digital download products, things that are easy to make, that everyone has, things like journals and stuff like that. Everyone does it. It's so much harder to succeed. So what you need to start thinking about is, if your designs take a bit of time, at what point are you going to need help? So at what point are you going to need to employ a VA or an assistant, a virtual assistant, someone that you might know to help you to bolster or stabilize your design process? It's the number one problem for all sellers that are building and growing digital stores. You've got to solve it. So think to yourself, okay, well, I'll do it, for 3 or 4 months. Then I can get some help further down the line, maybe from someone to help me to take that weight off of me so that I can then operate in other areas of the digital store that are vital. New ideas, new innovations, pricing, photography, video. There's so much to consider. Design, mark my words, it's your number one problem. Solve it sooner rather than later. Okay, as always, get into my comments. Let me know what you thought of these tips. Let me know if this is content you like to see, and if you've got any questions or queries, into my comments. And also remember, you can hire me if you need to hire me to work on your store. Just drop me a message, Nick, I need some help, and I'll send you a link to book a call with me. I'm honest, straightforward, as you guys know. I put everything out on the table for you. So let's get these sales. See you soon.